Hello, welcome to a quick thermodynamics video here for Chemistry 141. Today we're going to be talking through some of the different types of energy that you might be seeing in your study of chemistry that they'll probably talk about in class. And hopefully I can just give a little bit more of an overview of those. So important ones for chemistry that I'm going to highlight are kinetic, potential, chemical, electromagnetic, and thermal. So the others are all important. And if you take other classes like physics 191 or 161, gravitational energy will be really important for that class. Not so much for chemistry because the things we're dealing with are so tiny, but it's huge in most physics classes. So the ones I've highlighted are the ones we're going to talk through today. And let's start from the beginning. So kinetic energy, that's the energy of movement. So obviously you know that things moving super fast are the things that have higher energy. So in this case, they show you a rabbit moving. In chemistry, more so, you'll see kinetic energy with respect to electrons or with atoms. So if you think of something like temperature, that is the average kinetic energy of a group of molecules. So if you take a sample of air and you take an average of their kinetic energy, that is then translated into a temperature scale. So let's say room temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where that number comes from. It's the kinetic energy of the air molecules. The next one we're going to look at is potential. So that's the ball on top of the hill. That's energy that has the potential to do something. So potential energy is actually chemical energy is a type of potential energy usually, but potential energy is just stored energy. It's something you can do something with. So they gave the example of a ball on top of a hill. I think a more chemistry applicable example would be a battery. If you had like a Duracell or whatever battery you use and you had that here, we know that those store energy, and you can put it in a remote, or you can put it in a cell phone, or you can put it in a computer, and it'll run that for a while. So potential energy is just stored energy. Chemical energy is the energy stored in chemical bonds. So again, that's usually referred to as a type of potential energy. So bonds store energy. You can see that they show the bonding here very clearly. And breaking those bonds releases energy. Forming those bonds stores energy. So the most common example that you've probably seen in your daily life is food. Food is chemical energy. You break down the molecules in the food to give your body energy and the nutrients it needs. And then if you want to store that energy, you put it on, sometimes a little too unfortunately, as maybe stored adipose tissue. And then that's how you use energy later. Another example that you're probably a little too familiar with is gasoline. So gasoline is a form of chemical energy. That's a really high energy fuel that you're putting into your gas tank to make your car run for as long as possible. The next form of energy is electromagnetic. So you see the light bulb here. They show a light bulb because a light bulb is obviously giving off light, which is a form of electromagnetic energy, which is usually drawn with a squiggly arrow. So that's light, and light travels in photons, which is the little dot on the end there. So that's any kind of radiation is electromagnetic. So radio waves, microwaves, light energy, X-rays, gamma rays, all of those are different kinds of electromagnetic energy. And then the last one we're going to talk about is down here, thermal energy. And thermal energy is exactly what you think it is. It's heat energy that's given off. And you've probably seen that any number of chemical processes give off heat. So even our light bulb, as it's giving off electromagnetic energy, also gives off heat. A lot of chemical reactions give off heat. Kinetic energy due to friction will give off heat. So any number of things will give off thermal energy. And that was probably the one, no surprise to anyone, but when you're studying thermodynamics, that's the one you're going to be talking about the most. And that is hopefully a better overview of the different types of energy. There's just one more thing I want to talk about, and that it's energy transfer. So when you transfer energy, you always go from high energy to low energy. That is probably the first thing that you've heard if you've ever taken a physics or a chemistry class when you talk about thermodynamics. And it's just something I want you to keep in mind when you think of the different types of energy. So you're always going from hot to cold and never the other way around. So hopefully that gives you a little more insight into the different types of energy that you'll be talking about the rest of this course.